The atmosphere on set swiftly became heated as it began to be rumored that two well-known love and hip-hop artists, Kirk Frost and Bambi, had been involved in an event that no fan could have ever imagined. A heated argument between the two that went beyond words and past a line that left the actors, crew, and onlookers were amazed. The event seemed more like a high-stakes movie scene than reality TV, according to several who saw it. The team members' emotions were running dangerously high after being caught by surprise. A handful of the co-stars remained still in shock. Everyone reached for their phones, hoping to capture the moment on camera. Like wildfire, the enthusiasm swiftly spread over social media. Rumors, blogs, and fan sites flooded their feeds with enigmatic videos and descriptions that all pointed to the same question. Was this another well-thought-out camera trick, or was this a real incident? If this breaking point had really occurred, what may have led to it? Many fans believe that the long-standing hostility between Bambi and Kirk eventually erupted. But the full reality of this outburst, now, everyone wants to know what this moment is. It began for the actors like any other day of shooting would, the kind where the crew moved in a rhythmic pattern, the cameras were being adjusted, the lighting was adding a nice glow to the set, and the makeup artists were doing last-minute touch-ups. But if you paid close enough attention, you could hear that something wasn't quite right from the moment Bambi stepped onto the floor. She moved deliberately, her eyes searching and sharp, as if preparing for battle. She was aware of what was coming. The chatter in the room slowed somewhat, but not enough to be perceptible, so anybody tuned into the energy could sense that the air was heavier than usual. One of the producers was Kirk Frost, who was speaking calmly and firmly in the center of the conference. As he glanced at Bambi's across the room, his forceful tone seemed to weaken. Even though his eyes were just slightly flickering, it was enough to realize that something was coming. They gazed at each other for an excessive amount of time. The invisible stream of stress that began to burn between them was first felt by everyone in the local area, but it was so faint that it was hardly noticeable. Bambi marched forward, her face unfathomable, and Kirk gazed at her, still sporting that little smile he so often displayed under pressure. Her introductory sentence may have seemed to be a casual comment on something Kirk had said before. The weak, but her tone had a jagged edge to it, like a knife wrapped in silk. Kirk responded calmly and wrote it off as a misunderstanding. Bambi, but didn't think so. Like chess moves, the first exchanges were measured and calculated with each side, detecting the other individual. But the restriction didn't last long. Within a few minutes, Bambi's voice became louder and her motions broader. Then she started talking about earlier examples. She said that Kirk had sometimes intentionally and covertly humiliated her or undercut her. They spoke about private conversations that had come back to her. She said that Kirk had made remarks to other performers that painted her in a bad light. Kirk, for his part, was not going to give up. He flatly denied the most serious accusations. Furthermore, for he described what transpired with others saying Bambi was lying. He said that she was making drama out of nothing and exaggerated little issues. But if he was trying to diffuse the tension, it was not working. Bambi's will to resist appeared to grow stronger with each rebuff. The scene was not disregarded. Actors from other parts of the stage, pretending to check their phones or change their clothes, edged closer, their eyes still focused on the unfolding scene. Standing a few paces away, with his arms folded, Scrappy, who had a history with both, watched closely, ready to jump in if needed. In a secret area, the producers debated whether to intervene and keep things in order, or to let the camera to capture what was quickly becoming the kind of unscriptable reality TV gold. The anger in Bambi's voice gave way to one of sheer pain. She accused Kirk of deliberately creating trouble and planting seeds, much mistrust about her and others. She said he had been smiling in her face as he undercut her behind her back. Kirk's countenance stayed composed, but his clenched jaw conveyed his frustration. When Kirk finally spoke again, his voice was colder and more clipped. He told her, that Bambi was making a commotion that would only make her seem worse when the program came on, and she was making a fool of herself. That line really got to me. She is on par with Drywood. Her voice increased again, and she stepped forward, drawing them closer. This time, everyone on the stage could easily hear it since it was loud enough. She said that she wasn't afraid of her appearance on TV since she was at least being truthful. The crew shifted, in an uncomfortable way. A boom mic operator moved, about so they wouldn't miss a syllable. The stylist in the corner, carrying a pile of clothes, stopped in the center. There was an obvious sense of group cohesiveness in the room, the way people hunch over in anticipation of a big moment. Kirk held out his hand slightly, palms out, as if to signal that he didn't want things to go any further, but something more was conveyed by his gaze. There was no surrender here. This was a planned action. He said something too faintly for most people to hear. But Bambi's answer was rather revealing. Her eyes opened for a moment, then narrowed into a stare that could have cut through glass in an instant. She took a step closer and closer till the air between them was electrified. Her voice trailed off, but the passion was the same. She told him that she'd been warned about him for months now, suggested that he wasn't trustworthy, that he was picking sides in every argument. She said that she had chosen to ignore it out, of respect for the people they knew and their common history. But all of a sudden she felt stupid for thinking that about him. Kirk responded by gently shaking his head, then included a comment on how people like fabricating a tale to make themselves seem to be the victim. He had hardly done talking when Bambi shot back. Her voice was almost trembling, but it was from the weight of all she had been holding within, not from fear. She brought up a recent altercation with another cast member, implying that she believed Kirk was engaged in some questionable behavior. The emphasis shifted from verbal sparring to something far riskier at this point. A crew member shoved a chair out of the way as a precaution. One of the producers, he took a half-step forward, his eyes darting between them as if preparing himself for the possibility of having to physically separate them. Everything went slowly now, the air thick, intentional. As if the room itself were holding its breath, Bambi pointed directly at Kirk with an immovable arm and said she was done. The games are over. The fake smiles have vanished. I've finished. My acting. Everything was fine. Her words had a tone of finality. The kind that caused her remarks to have an effect even on others who were not familiar with the whole history. Kirk's expression never wavered, yet his quiet at that moment was more potent than any words he could have spoken. The tension between them was alive now, pulsing, and everyone there knew that whatever happened next might make this bitter argument a talking point for many seasons to come. The silence between them seemed as if it were being stretched to its breaking point. Every eye in the room was focused on the stalemate. As the background actors attempted to identify them, there were a few whispered exchanges. Watching without, drawing attention to themselves. With their faces firmly fastened by the lenses, the camera operators remained still. Now that she knew that this was the kind of movie that producers fought over, Bambi's breathing was faster and her shoulders were rising and sinking with every breath. She stared at Kirk as if she were searching for a sign of remorse, any hint that he may back down. But Kirk didn't back down. His quiet, if anything, came off as seductive, as if he were urging her to make contact. Then Kirk murmured something that made the room chill, loud enough to be heard clearly, but not loud enough to be mistaken for shouting in a voice that hardly carried. He told her she wasn't as important to the program or to those around them as she wanted to believe. It was a subtle insult with the type of effect that could only be produced by a well-timed comment. There was a collective gasp from the spectators. One of the stylists said, "Oh no," under her breath. While Bambi's face stayed still, everyone could see that she had almost reached a breaking point by the way her wrists flexed at her sides and her stiff jaw. She murmured, "Breaking point," as she drew nearer until they were just a few inches apart. Her voice came out quietly but furiously. She reminded Kirk of the times she had defended him when others had doubted his dedication. The nights, she said. She had stood up for him when gossip and rumors threatened to ruin his reputation. Then, in front of the whole crew, she said that this was his method of paying her back by diminishing her worth. Kirk shifted, his face stiffening, his weight. He didn't back down, but his eyes darted toward the cameras as if he knew every move and every word was being captured. He told her that she was overreacting and that she was letting her emotions take precedence over the facts. However, before he finished, Bambi stopped him, raising her voice to a level that echoed off the studio walls. She accused him of using well-selected words to hide his true intentions, and of continuously changing the narrative to support his claims of reason. The others seemed shaky, so Scrappy, who had been quietly watching from a few feet away, finally moved up to join them. There was a warning in his tone, yet it seemed calm, almost casual. Before things got out of control and they couldn't go back, he told them both to relax. But Bambi seldom peered in. She continued to look at Kirk in his direction. Everyone in the room was holding their breath once again. Kirk took a little step back, but not enough to constitute a retreat. It was more like changing positions in battle. He said he had had enough of the accusations and the theatrics. If she chose to believe the worst of him, nothing he said would change her mind. Bambi's voice cracked at that moment, but not in a depressing way. Due to the enormous weight of all she had been keeping to herself, she brought up the off-camera interaction was not known to most of the team. In one case, Kirk had a private conversation with a close friend or family member. The revelation shook the crowd. People exchanged glances, with some shaking, their heads and others clearly trying to remember if they had heard anything in line with what she said. Kirk responded quickly. He refuted it emphatically, but he did so quickly that it came out as defensive. His thesis was not supported by its tempo. Bambi leaned in closer. Everyone had to listen more intently as her eyes narrowed and her voice became so fierce. She reassured him that she had conversations, witnesses, and other proof that would leave no room for doubt. Doubt about what he was doing. As soon as she spoke those words, the atmosphere shifted. The employees knew it. The word proof has the power to change the course of a whole reality TV season. A producer gestured subtly for a camera to approach, knowing that they were going to. The tightness in Kirk's mouth was intense. Why? He questioned her. If she really had proof that she had given it to him in secret rather than ambush him in public. Bambi laughed, but it wasn't a joke. It was severe and cold. She told him she had tried to settle things privately before, but he always managed to turn the tables on her. This time, she claimed, she wanted everyone to see the truth. The crowd was now anticipating every word. Even others who weren't directly involved in the program, but were on set for other reasons, had found themselves getting closer and closer, like moths to a flame. While packing her luggage, a makeup artist stopped, her brush still in hand, her eyes focused on the scene playing out a few feet away. Kirk took a long breath, his expression shifting from one of irritation to one of calm. He told her that she was making a big mistake and that public disputes no one has had success with, such things. But before he could say anything further, Bambi took over and did something out of the ordinary. As if she was about to swipe through it and show everyone what she had been talking about, she pulled her phone out of her bag and held it up. The tension in the room suddenly became an electric charge. Everyone paused, staring at the phone Bambi was holding and then back at her face. Kirk's expression darkened. He told her that she had no clue what she was playing with and that she was about to unlock a door that she couldn't shut. For a while, it seemed as if she would really read through, get the messages, turn the screen toward the cameras so that everyone can see. You could almost feel her thumb pressing against your skin as it hovered just over the screen because the atmosphere was so thick with anticipation. Then something was different. It may have been Kirk's face. Maybe it was the shocking knowledge that this event would follow her forever once it was televised. But Bambi hesitated. Despite the little delay, Kirk was able to make some progress. He warned her to use utmost care, his voice lowering to a warning tone, about what she did. Despite the hesitation, the tension remained. All it did was make it more angular. Whatever happened next, the crew felt that this was far from over. Not even close. Bambi's thumb remained over the phone screen, and her breathing was slow and deep. Time appeared to have stopped in the room. Every sound was amplified, including the subtle hum of the overhead lights, the muffled cough of someone in the rear, and the quiet whirr of a camera lens shifting focus. Kirk's eyes. His eyes were focused on hers, steady yet strained, and his jaw muscles trembled slightly in that still moment. One of the producers tried to step in and relocate cautiously between them. With his hands outstretched, palms facing out, he spoke calmly and professionally about being professional and remembering that this was still a set. But his voice could hardly be heard. Bambi didn't look him in the eye. Neither did Kirk. There was simply quiet conversation going on. An unspoken conflict between two people who had both decided not to blink first. Then Bambi's forthright statement shattered the tension like a thunderclap. Some people really flinched. She promised Kirk that if he didn't believe it, she would destroy all they had for the sake of truth. Then he did not know her as well as he had said. The words were sharp, a deliberate strike. Kirk took a step forward, bringing them closer. His voice reduced to a deep rumble, hardly audible above a whisper. Strangely enough, however, it filled the whole room. He reassured her that she wasn't only endangering their relationship or their reputations. She was playing with fire which might burn anybody in its path, but she didn't even realize it. Bambi's eyes narrowed. She said that rather than just telling her the truth, he was trying to frighten her by using vague warnings. Kirk didn't move his gaze, but something there was strain on his face, as if her words had hit home. Uncomfortably, Scrappy moved off the sidelines. He looked from Bambi to Kirk, clearly weighing whether to leap in again. He'd seen enough explosions on reality TV to know when entertainment was about to give way to something raw and dangerous. But before he could move, Bambi unlocked her phone and started scrolling. Her finger running across the glass made a loud sound in the silence. Everyone was leaning in to view her and Kirk's expressions as they waited for the screen to be turned outward. Before she could show anything, Kirk's hand left her, but it was to gently push her phone back toward her instead, than to remove it. It wasn't harsh, yet it was strong enough to make a point. He told her quietly but firmly that she would regret disclosing anything before knowing the whole truth. Not because he would make her regret it, but because the truth was more complex than she had anticipated. This offered her hesitancy. That was not what she expected him to say. Something appeared to shift in the room. Once again, the animosity gave way to a strange, uneasy attraction. Bambi tilted her head, studying him. She asked him straight out what he meant. Kirk glanced back and forth between her and the cameras. She didn't know what was happening behind the scenes, he said, approximately. She believed that loyalty and betrayal had little to do with alliances, agreements, and conversations. He said that if he provided an explanation, it would include others who had nothing to do with their own issues. Bambi gave a sharp little laugh that showed how disbelieving she was. She told him that he had said similar things before, but they had never been precise enough to make her change her mind, just vague enough to make her doubt herself. "I'm not going to fall for it this time," she said. Tension started to increase once again. Kirk's face clouded as he told her that if she crossed a certain line, there would be no going back. Wasn't harmful. It was just the situation. When she was ready to burn bridges, he told her to be careful. Bambi's chest rose and fell, and her breathing accelerated again as the emotions swirled. Maybe some bridges had to burn, she said. Maybe everyone on the set needed to see him for who he really was, away from the cameras. That's when Kirk lost his temper for the first time. His voice rose, not quite a roar, but in a way that conveyed passion. He charged her of falsifying information and letting rumors and partial truths sway her judgment. The employees reacted right away. Some of the people gasped. A makeup artist pressed her brush down too hard. On the table, it clattered metallically. Bambi was not going to give up. She dropped her voice to a threatening tone and stepped slightly closer. "The only rumors I heard were receipts," she claimed. She lifted her phone a little further, just enough to remind him of what she had. Finally, Scrappy stepped in and positioned himself between them. In a calm but firm voice, he ordered them both to stop before the situation became something they couldn't escape. He told them that cameras were filming, and that fans would take this and make it into something bigger than any of them had imagined. But instead, when she calmed down, Bambi became even more determined. She told Scrappy she was not afraid of the cameras. She was afraid of letting lies go unnoticed.